Well, welcome everybody. Welcome on behalf of my co-hosts here, Delphine and André. We are all at Aalto together. And this is a topic we've been sort of speaking about informally. And so we thought, here's this conference, and even if it's just the three of us, it'll be nice to have this conversation. So we're happy that there's an extra three of you to join us today. So we'll start by introducing ourselves and what our connection is to this topic. And then we'll take you into a Miro board. And we basically just thought we'd do like a guided discussion, brainstorming kind of thing on this topic of design education and how economics might be more integrated or more creatively integrated into design education. So I can start. I'm Elise, and I'm a postdoc at Aalto, and my topic here is design economies. And I'm in a sustainable design research group where they're doing lots of research on things like degrowth and eco-welfare state and sustainable transitions. And then outside of that, I come to this as a design educator and administrator. So I used to be chair of a design school in Toronto and have some experience doing curriculum development. So planning programs and going through this whole balance of like, how do you decide what the learning outcomes are for a whole program? How do you decide what to cut and keep in such a limited time of these highly planned academic programs? So I can say that we haven't integrated that much economics in the programs that I've been involved in, and I'm really keen to talk about this. Yeah. So maybe Delphine, would you like to go?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Delphine. I'm an industrial and product designer by profession. I've been educated in product design from Eckhart in Switzerland more than 10 years ago now. I also studied social sciences, and I just presented last week my master's thesis in the Department of Design as part of the Creative Sustainability program at Aalto University. So for the last 2 years, my research focus has been on generating knowledge and shaping healthy circular economies in the building industry. I followed the construction material plasterboard, and I was interested in how this material could enter these healthy circular economies. And I showed how growth-focused and short-termist worldviews and values can result in exploitative practices and also neglected relationship with the ecological non-humans that are associated with construction materials. So more broadly, my interest is on the emergence of alternative and radical economies, and the ways such economic models can support the well-being of humans, but also ecological non-humans, so being plants, animal, minerals, natural ecosystems, and how we could develop more respectful relationships with those more than humans. So this is a topic I wish to continue researching in a PhD. And so today, for my master thesis, I had Elise as a part of my supervision team. So this is how we are connected. And today I'm really interested to discuss how to bring economics to the design classroom, because as a design student, we hardly discussed and repoliticize the economy. So I'm quite keen to discuss practical ways of making it happen in the classroom.
All right. This is going to be great. I'm André. My background is actually in economics. I started studying that. I worked in an environmental NGO all my working life. So that was like always the backdrop of what I was doing. I did a course called the Design for Society in Norway, a student-led course that was based on the Aalto Design for Government course. So naturally, I ended up at Aalto at the Creative Sustainability program. I got into the design part because I was kind of done with economics. I've been roasting the central bank chief of Norway with Rethinking Economics pamphlets, and was active member in Norway, and now I'm founding Rethinking Economics in Finland as well. There's a network of pluralist economics, heterodox theories, everything from feminist economics to complexity, institutional to ecological, you name it, economics. And this is a really good topic for me, the combination of design and being able to combine these two disciplines is the future, I think.
Super. Okay, so I will share my screen and give you an overview. And also, I mean, we're such a small group. If anybody would like to introduce themselves very quickly, we can do that. Utishta, do you want to say hi? Our other Aalto colleague.
Hi, yeah. So I'm also from Aalto. I'm doing the master's in collaborative and industrial design, and yeah, I'm just doing my master's thesis now. Looking at technology and pluralism and those sort of things, and definitely got an interest in these sort of things. And yeah, Elise is my advisor, and André is my roommate, so flatmate.
The world is so small. Okay, thanks, Utishta. Joanna, do you want to say something?
Hi, I'm Joanna. I'm a lecturer at Loughborough University. I'm also Canadian, actually, Elise.
Ah, I don't know.
Yeah, I was wondering where you were working in Toronto. Was it OCAD?
No, at George Brown. At George Brown
Oh,
College.
right, okay. Right, yeah, okay. It's been quite a long time since I've lived in Toronto. Yes, and I've written a book called Design Ecology Politics. I'm not that surprised that there's not that many people here, because it's like a really undiscussed topic outside a very fringe group in the design community. So hopefully we can change that, but there's only a few of us at the moment. Yeah, so I look forward to this session, and I wish I could have attended more sessions over the last week.
Okay, well, welcome. Okay, and Ventislava, would you like to say something?
Yes, hello. My name is Ventislava, and actually I'm a student right now. I'm a student at in graphic design at UAL in London. So I found about this whole series of workshops related to design and economics, and since my only background in economics is my father and my brothers who have studied this, I decided to join and just listen and observe your conversations, since I have I don't know almost anything about it. Like, I've had some classes in high school about economics, but I suppose that's not a lot. So I'm just discovering, and I decided to start here.
Thank you for coming. It's more classes than I've had in economics, so. And we appreciate having more student voices. Isaac, hello.
Hi, I'm just joining. I had a rough start on the day, so I'm now here. And
Okay, welcome. From Norway also, right?
yeah.
Yeah, great. And Simon, do you want to say something about your connection to this topic?
Yes, I also didn't do economics in high school. It wasn't on offer where I was. I actually went to university to do mathematics, but I thought a design and mathematics own conference would just be too niche. So yeah, I did study economics. That was my background. I'm actually a lecturer in primarily service design at Ravensbourne, but we also look at other things. We've included things like transition design and other elements into the course to give the students a much broader view, which I think is part of the reason that something like this is important. So we've been introducing economic theory, different economic models, like bringing it in different ways through the course for a few years now. So I'm just generally fascinated by how design students engage with different ideas around economics and how much further there is to go with it. So yeah, it's really great to be here talking about it.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm going to share my screen for 2 minutes. I've also put the Miro link in the chat. Maybe I need to do it again if somebody joined after. Okay, there's the Miro board. And I'll share with you and just give you an, oh, I think you need to enable the screen sharing, Simon. Here we go. Okay, so I'll just give you an overview of this board, and then I think we'll stop screen sharing and you can move around on your own as we speak. But we have two questions that we wanted to go through, and maybe about 10 minutes each. And we've been adding ideas here based on our own conversations. And we thought we'd kind of go through those, get you to add ideas in a new color, if you will. And we can talk about what you're putting on there. And then after we go through those 2 questions, we have an option of activity A or B that you could choose, which is just a few minutes of you imagining what a course might look like or a design economics graduate might look like. And along the bottom, we have some resources. We started to think about what would be kind of key readings you would want a design student to do, and kind of how you might structure that or put those into topics in a class. So Joanna, your book's down there. But please feel free to add there also. Okay, so if you would go to board 1, I'll stop sharing. I think. Okay, there we go. All right, now, is everybody there on board 1? Yes. Okay, so the first question we thought about was just sort of the lay of the land. So how is economics currently reflected in design education, if at all? So it would be great to hear from you what you've seen, but maybe we could run through first of all the kinds of things that we've observed. So the first is this idea that it's kind of hiding in a lot of curriculum. So even in sort of this underlying logic of design education, that design is a value add, profit-making activity, or the ways in which design problems are framed as business problems, or the tools that might be used to frame design problems like the business model canvas. There's sort of this capital logic that's hiding in there that might not be expressly dealt with. Feel free to jump in or add stickies on here if you want to.
Yeah, I think especially the concept of the circular economy, as also Delphine mentioned, is something that's really like integrated in the design curriculums, just in terms of like how you design and like, you know, this eco design, or, you know, trying to design for disassembly. All these things are kind of coming out of this new like need for circular economy. So I think that one is pretty prominent in a lot of the courses, at least in creative sustainability.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's very much, it's quite technocratic normally, and less about the economy and more about the sort of resource flows.
Yeah, so it's like we would have engineers kind of talking about it, or like the engineering school on CAM, and it's been, it's true what you're saying. It's like LCAs and like these labelings, and it's more about that and fitting labels than necessarily like creating connection to items in a way that would like make you take care of them, kind of like designing for emotions, or I think this was one of the emotional attachment. I think this is one of the Delphine, you know quite a lot about that, I think, considering you've done 200 pages about plasterboard.
Well, I've never had, I don't know, I find it a little bit comparing my education 10 years ago in industrial and product design and the education in creative sustainability at Aalto, which is a bit at the fringe of design education, in my opinion. So I'm not sure that what is taught in the creative sustainability, because it's a multidisciplinary program as well. If that's, it is an example, but it's quite concise. It's not, I'm not sure if it's part of the, so designing for emotional attachment. I've heard people in contemporary design at Aalto who would talk about this topic. Circular economy, I've never learned about it as a designer, but a long time ago. So and in the design course in creative sustainability, it is one tool, but of course there's many, including I don't know, system thinking and other project approach.
Which again is a fringe thing, but it's mainstreaming, I think. Slowly but surely.
Yeah, I wonder how many schools are teaching circular economy too. I just looked at all the industrial design programs in Ontario, all 4 of them, and I don't think that they're teaching it. I think that they're still doing things like biomimicry and design for recycling and reuse. I think that this, maybe Aalto is a little bit ahead there, or this program is.
But you're right, Joanna, that that's why I did also a bit the critique of circular economy, because circular economy is seen as sometimes the tool for sustainable change. And it is still an alternative economic model, but not a radical economic model. So it can still be part of business as usual, and it can still be, because it is within the idea of growth-focused economy. And then you can just put in loops materials and stuff while still being part of a growth-focused development type of economy. So I think the critical aspect of it is not so present in design courses. And like you were saying, it's often blended together with more engineering approach of,
A circular economy is only like, you don't learn about it in the design educations. It's more like you're a part of it, or it's a word you put on the portfolio, but it's not necessarily something that's been like critically reflected about or like included in the education. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, Simon?
Just well, I mean, so there's a lot of stuff on here that is familiar. So, we would do stuff around thinking about systems thinking and all that kind of work anyway. But the first year that I started to think about introducing economics into the course, we went back to basics, which I thought was quite interesting, because what I wanted to do was I wanted to explore the economics and the economy as a material in itself. So we actually did a module specially created on kind of currency and market design to think about how these things and these mechanisms have been designed. And that was really interesting, going back to the basics of economics, because some students are like really, really engaged with it. And actually it completely shifted the dynamics within the group as to who was really kind of connecting with the material. So I found that quite interesting, just that introductory stuff almost. And then looking at how to think about the economy as a thing you could actually, that was manipulated, that was controlled, that was designed, rather than just a thing that happens to us. All that kind of stuff I think is really interesting as well.
Yeah. And it's good. Yeah. No, I was just gonna build on that. Like it's definitely something that is like a discourse. I'm now writing. My column is being published in a Norwegian newspaper now about this, like about how the economy is designed. It is deliberate, like the way markets are formed. It is through a certain type of design. But a lot of people won't admit this. They will say, no, it's like free. It's not planned. It's not steered. It's like free. But it's definitely a design system.
Yeah, I think the whole concept of the free market is hilarious, and I think it's just this weird concept that exists and doesn't really mean anything, because anybody who knows anything about it will know that there are no free markets, and it's a fantasy in that sense. But yeah,
theoretical construct.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's really important. And I look at even kind of modern conversations around things like modern monetary theory. I'd really like to do MMT with students and think about how our entire concepts of how the economy work are just constructions. So I'd really like to do more of that, because I think that's important for everybody, actually, not just design students, to know that these things that we're working in are created and fabrications, and some of them are just kind of ideological theories. They're not even a thing. So
Simon, when you taught that to design students, what did you do with it afterwards? Like after you introduced these concepts, was there a design project that went with it?
Yeah, it was it was an interesting project. We basically we got them to basically create a workshop that was around the concept of kind of value and of creating a market for the sort of people that were there according to kind of sort of backgrounds and skills. So kind of fabricating a mini economy and kind of putting this in the sort of context of a workshop. So really to mess with the idea of what you manipulate and what you don't manipulate in the course of doing this, and kind of how people feel about it. So it was quite experimental, but I feel lucky actually that we were able to do those kinds of things. So I think, you know, yeah, it was a really interesting project. So yeah, and had a kind of material outcome, which is really good.
Okay, I think we need to move on to the next one. Actually, this is a good segue. Isaac, I saw you wrote some stuff on here. Do you want to say something about your stickies?
Yeah, no, I was thinking about my own formation when I was studying design. And I remember I had this course called Economic Engineering that was that started pretty much with things about macroeconomics, but then it goes about how to convince people to buy or get products that we want them to get. So in the microeconomic space. So it's interesting that we were never told that we are going to be controlling people, but instead that we have something to kind of move the flow of the market.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
it was a backdrop. Yeah.
That's interesting, huh? But it also gives designers quite a bit of economic power in that way. What you're saying, you have the control of that you can influence the market in that. Interesting. Okay. Just as a side note, there are some different design economy courses that exist out there. Like the Bauhaus Weimar has something called degrowth design, which has an amazing, the website goes to a very detailed publication about all sorts of topics.
Where is that? Sorry.
Do you see in the top right corner of this first mural board under special topic courses?
Okay, here.
Yeah, I found that website quite useful.
I'm checking that out.
Parsons, through the anthropology department, there's a capitalism minor that undergrad students can take, and a master's program course called Design and Economies, which looks quite interesting also. Okay, let's move to board 2. Which I think we kind of just started talking about. And the question is, what skills and topics related to economics are important for design students to learn? So I think, I mean, based on what you were just saying, Simon, it's sort of this kind of understanding the basics in a way, and understanding that it's, what André said was that it's designable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think that just knowing that not to get like economized by economists if you're like in a government setting, or if you are somewhere, like don't try to kind of get to know the basic tricks that is used to like say, no, this is how things are, like just basic understanding of model assumptions or something behind economists economic thought, I think is very useful. Like just the assumptions they put in, or the worldviews, or just like really basic things that will just make you able to say, well, actually, it's not how things are. This is just the theory. I think also what Simon got into. Sorry.
No.
I think also what Simon got into about MMT is important, because it's kind of has that story approach, also the Green New Deal, about how you can actually, the possibilities are almost endless for what you can do, right? It's not like you shouldn't limit yourself or the designs to say like, oh, we can't afford this. But because if it's like a properly good design, like in a community scale or you name it, then it could be funded. It's just a matter of political will, or yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like I mean, it's kind of obvious, but when you look at the stuff like MMT and you start thinking about the way that politicians talk about the economy like it's a business,
yeah,
the fact that this becomes how, and it's deliberate, Economists want you to think that the economy is a business because they want you to think that there's a limit to the amount of money they can spend. And you know that that's not true, but this I think these things are really fundamentally important, like you say, Andre, people understanding that there are no limits to spending, because literally your sovereign currencies, you can do whatever you want with money, right? So it's this kind of understanding is really fundamental, I think.
I think it might be also interesting to link more material approach to a non-material approach of design. So I'm thinking about like product design as in like industrial and product design, and the more like service design approach, where suddenly we work with digital tools, and or interaction design, where we're very human-centered, but then we need to link that with the materials and the resources that we're actually moving around and using. Even if we talk about digital technology, everything that is inside those digital technology, we're relying on limited resources and limited amount of energy. And so I think it would be interesting in the development of design towards more service-oriented or type of design to actually relink it to the resources and the energy that we need for these types of economies.
And I think that's a really good point to link that to how that fits into alternatives way of economic organizing. Because today, like, we're trying now to get the Finnish maternity box and to turn that into a product service system. But there's so many institutions that are trying to hinder that from happening, like the EU Market Court, just collaborating, even just this idea of that you have to compete in order to make things happen is like really hard. So these like concepts that we all love, it's really hard to enact in real life. And it's just like, it's a real pity, but I guess like connecting that more to the economy and to like, show the connection between which barriers there are in the economic frameworks now to the things we talk about in design. Like what would be the barriers for more product service systems or more service-based design and sharing and all the things we love, how to make that happen.
I think that I wrote a note, and then I think Isaac's writing something which is sort of similar, but slightly different. But what's interesting is that there's a book called Monoculture, which talks about this idea of how in different eras of human development, there's been an overwhelming kind of common consciousness about the world and how the world works. And it used to be things like scientific, or then it became industrial. So there's a whole period where everything was about science, a whole period was all about industry. And in the modern age, the economic age, it's all about productivity and value. And this worldview is what permeates all of us in our lives. Are we being productive? Do we have value? We're in a marketplace. And I find that kind of stuff really, really fascinating, that this is so all-encompassing, that it affects how we think about everything that we do. So that kind of stuff, and seeing those things, I think, is really fundamentally important.
Yeah, definitely. Like value and time and just basic things that are just implicit and people take for granted. It has a lot of implications. What other subjects are there that could be interesting for design students? I think everything to do with property, especially if you're thinking about like planners or architects as well, in addition to designers, like land pricing models, like commoning theories, just economic history, I think, even. And connecting economic history to design history, I think, is really important. Like connecting what economic implications made like the Bauhaus exist, or like just connecting these a little bit more would be also interesting. I know Guy is doing that quite a lot. Guy Junior.
Yeah, I agree. I wish I'd done economic history as well as economics. I think there's a lot in that, which I'd like to have it.
I mean, how much of the basics do you think that design students need to know before they can have these bigger discussions?
I mean, I think it's a gateway drug personally. So I'm, you know, too. Like, I mean, I'm biased, but I generally think that a little bit of economic theory, which most people don't even have, can go a long way in getting people addicted. Even understanding just how economics divides up macro, micro, different models. You know, we do all sorts of stuff around sort of, for example, we did things like utility theory, Homo economicus, you know, things which are about how people have seen the world, and how economics has tried to describe human behavior as a way of getting people into thinking about how we, you know, how we see the world and how we think about human behavior. So actually a small amount of some of those quite basic theories can go a long way in helping to get people, even in as a starting point, into exploring it more. And I've always been into sort of giving people a starting point and then giving people a much kind of broader range of reading material to kind of explore how they want to. So I feel like that's always been quite a nice way to sort of get that conversation going with them. But yeah, you don't need a lot to get people going with some of these things.
I think some of the more exciting also intro stuff is in behavioral economics,
yeah,
which is also pretty much used in design as like all these things about nudging and like little interventions here and there. I did like 20 credits in that in my bachelor's/master's, and it was it's been more used to add more what is it called, like more letters to the equations. Than to actually make some substantial change. So just knowing that, like, what kind of theories that you're kind of designing as a part of by doing these like little interventions here and there, like just knowing what behavioral economics is and like what that has had to say for how we think about how to steer people into doing the right thing.
There's another manipulation that happens in design that I think in the design class you need to be real. And I wish there would be more, that designers would be more critical of their own profession and how this profession can save the world, and and be critical about using those economic models like nudging, for example, for something that is for the good of society and natural environment, or are we just using it to do business as usual? But then for that, I think the designer need to be very critical with our own profession, because we're a bit on the evil side. We have been for a long time.
Yeah, I was going to say, related to that, I think it's not just economics actually, but it's related disciplines like politics and sociology and anthropology that help you understand how economics functions socially, and how things work in other places where our particular type of economic system isn't so just monolithic. And so things like how social relations are constructed, so sociology, and then the sort of contestation of those relationships in political theory and other sort of ways of development of different types of social relations in anthropology. So, I mean, like I did my undergraduate in Canada, where I got more of a sort of liberal arts education than the type of design education that I'm involved with now as a lecturer in the UK. And I think that the liberal arts model is really needed for design to do what it could, like it has the potential to do, but it just can't do it if people don't have some training on, or if people don't have a sort of wider scope of engagement in their like in their undergraduate education, or it'll be difficult because economics on its own, yeah, it really needs to be situated.
Yeah.
As well.
Context.
Yeah.
Can I,
Yeah. I know there's one
can I add
program.
something?
Sorry, Venceslava, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, can I ask something? Because you're talking about all these models and how we can integrate economics in the design program, but what your students are you talking about? Because I'm trying like to understand how can I, as I'm undergraduate, I'm still doing my bachelor, where can I find place for economics? Because I understand that like we need to learn about these basics you were talking about. I totally agree with this, but we have so many other things to do, and for many people it won't be a priority. And I think that it is also like a question of maturity and like realizing the importance of this exact science and how it will in a way act on our practice later. So yeah, what your students are you talking about?
It's a really good question. I can tell you that from experience, it's impossible to find extra space in the curriculum. Everybody has like these design education curriculums are so established, and people are very territorial, and they don't want to sacrifice type 101 for economics 101. So yeah, where do you put these courses, or can you integrate them throughout the curriculum in some way?
I mean, I don't think that it's necessary for all undergraduates to do a whole module necessarily on economics. Even like even a few lectures would be beneficial. You know, it'd be great if there was a module available for people who are interested in going into more depth, but typically that's not even on at all, like offered even. I mean, I struggle to offer one lecture on economics, and it's my main, you know, one of my main things. And so if that's, and I'm pushing as hard as I can. So it's in your average sort of quite large design program, it's not really on the cards.
We need to educate the educator before educating the students so that we can have ethics and political economy and economics throughout the different topics that we are addressing in the classroom. So just be more critical on what type of objects and services we are actually designing and what type of world we're designing.
I mentioned the sort of idea of gateway drugs with economics before, but one of the things that I noticed, you can always tell if you haven't recommended a book to students and they're reading it anyway, that there's something, you know, that's quite interesting. And so everybody that I've seen wandering around on my course was reading Kate Raworth's Donut Economics book, because it's a bestseller, because everybody knows about it. And I think it's interesting because, you know, there's a thing that kind of happens on its own, which is great. So there are some things like that out there where people just sort of pick them up, and, you know, and as much as it kind of covers a particular thing and there's so much to explore outside of that, at least it kind of gets people thinking about the economy and where they sit within the economy and how the economy influences what they're doing and, you know, what the purpose is. So I think that kind of stuff is always nice. But yeah, it can be hard to fit that into undergraduate courses for sure.
Sorry, go for it.
Yeah. Just a thought. So as context, I did my bachelor's of design in India. And I think we had maybe one lecture on the circular economy. Someone from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation had come down and it was stuff. But I think, at least for me, the best way that I learned of it was actually through a project. So, you know, we had this craft design sort of internship thing. And, you know, we went to sort of remote location, learned about local economies, how that sort of flow of resources happened over there. And I thought that was like a really good practical way. And maybe then I learned the terminology a bit later, but, you know, the interest stemmed and started from there. So that could also, I think, you know, fit in with the rest of the curriculum as well.
Just one sort of caveat with all of this is that the kind of higher level skill for every student is obviously the critical thinking part. And so there's always a danger when, you know, even with a book like Donut Economics, that people go, okay, here's the manual. This is how everything works, you know, and it's always going to be, if you find something and you think, yes, this is what we grab onto, this is how it all works. Or if you find the circular economy, yes, the circular economy is the answer to every problem. You know, trying to kind of also, you know, introduce this or make sure, really push to be critical of all of these things as well, I think is really fundamentally important. So, you know, just trying to balance those things.
I think what you mentioned there is really important, like this distinction between models and principles, like because the circular economy is not an economic model of society, it's just some principles that industrial production can follow. But yeah, and I think designers might be inclined a lot to follow like these manifestos or these like, you know, this do this, and then you like did that thing. But yeah, to be more critical of like, in which framework are you operating within is kind of important. I think that's a basic skill, maybe just recognize where you are, what kind of businesses exist, what kind of power relations are there, and who, as a designer, where are you going to be working? Is it government? Is it in industrial production? Like, is it for a community? Like, maybe just like, yeah, have common pitfalls and something in the design education.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe we should conclude there. That was a